When I paid for our family dinner, my wife's sister jokes, "You're just the backup wallet when real men aren't around." My wife laughed along, so I quietly slid the bill toward her and said, "Then I guess it's time you found a real man to pay." The entire table fell silent as she reached for her purse. It's strange how one moment, one sentence, can redraw the entire outline of your life. That night at Dos Reyes was supposed to be nothing more than a casual family dinner. That's what Tanya had called it, just family, just dinner. She picked the spot because she said it had a vibe. I never liked the place. It was loud, too colorful, too chaotic. Tables packed, so close you could hear everyone's conversations. It smelled like burnt cheese and overcooked onions, and everything felt sticky. But I didn't complain. I rarely did. Not to Tanya. I remember that day clearly. A Thursday. Work had been rough, 2 drivers out sick, 1 warehouse delay, and my manager breathing down my neck about shipment records that weren't even my responsibility. I came home to find Tanya already dressed and spraying herself with something citrusy in the mirror. She looked good. Not for me, though I realized that later. Back then, I told myself she just liked making an effort when she went out. I showered, changed, and we drove together in silence. The kind that fills a car not because you're comfortable with each other, but because there's nothing left to say that won't lead to something worse. We met her sister Alana at the restaurant. Her 2 cousins, Brielle and Jasper, were already there, sipping cocktails. The drinks came fast, the conversation faster. Tanya lit up around her family. She always did. Loud laughter, bright expressions, talking over one another like there was a competition for who could be heard the most. I sat there with a polite smile, nodding occasionally, sipping a watered-down rum and Coke. That was my role in these gatherings. Quiet, dependable Ron. The guy who always picked up the check. It happened after the second round of drinks. Right as the waiter dropped off the bill. It was sitting there, untouched, and I did what I always did. Reach for it. That's when Alana looked directly at me and said it. "You're just the backup wallet when real men aren't around." The sentence hit me in the chest. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even said with malice. It was casual, like she'd said something she thought was clever. A little jab, dressed up as humor. What I remember most isn't her face, though it was Tanya's reaction. She laughed. Not a chuckle. A real, open-mouth laugh like it was the funniest thing she'd heard in weeks. And I just sat there, staring at her. Then, quietly, I slid the bill toward her. "Then I guess it's time you found a real man to pay," I said. The table froze. The conversation died instantly, the kind of silence that only happens when something real cuts through the noise. Nobody moved. Tanya blinked at me. Alana looked down. Even the cousins stopped mid-sip. Tanya reached into her purse, lips pressed tight, and pulled out her card. The rest of dinner was a blur. I didn't speak. I think they tried to pick the conversation back up, but the spark was gone. When the plates were cleared and we walked out into the cool night, it was like stepping out of a room filled with smoke. You don't realize how stifled you've been until you finally breathe. In the car, she said nothing. Neither did I. That night, she went straight to bed. I sat in the living room with the TV on mute, just staring at nothing. I wish I could say that was the moment everything ended. But the truth is, things had been ending for a long time. That dinner just made it obvious. Over the next few weeks, Tanya and I became roommates in a cold house. We didn't argue, didn't touch, barely spoke. She buried herself in her work designing jobs for startups, social media campaigns, and gigs I didn't even understand. Her laptop became her shield, and every time I asked if she wanted to watch a movie or go out, she had an excuse. Tired. Busy. Maybe later. I started staying at work longer. Even the office felt warmer than home. But deep down I knew. She'd already left me. She just hadn't walked out the door yet. Then came the day I came home early. It wasn't planned. A freak rainstorm had knocked out power at the main depot. Dispatch told everyone to call it early. I grabbed a burger on the way home and drove through the gray drizzle, windshield wipers screeching across glass. The house was quiet when I stepped inside. Still warm, lived in, but there was something off. Her purse was on the kitchen counter, her jacket hanging by the door, and a note. "Ron, we need to talk. Can we have dinner tonight? I'll make lasagna." Tea lasagna. Her peace-offering meal. She only made it when she knew something hard had to be said. I didn't eat the burger. I threw it in the trash, took a long shower, and sat on the couch until I heard her car pull up. She walked in with grocery bags, smiled softly. No hug, no kiss. Just a weary hey. The smell of garlic and tomato filled the kitchen as she cooked. I sat at the table, drinking water, listening to the gentle clink of utensils, the shuffle of her feet. When she finally sat down, she looked older. Not aged, just worn. As if life had stretched her too thin. She didn't look at me when she said it. "I've been seeing someone." 3 words. That's all it took. I didn't react. I didn't scream or cry or throw a plate. I just stared at her. She finally met my eyes. Hers were wet but defiant. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. "How long?" I asked, voice like sand. She hesitated. "Before dinner." It was like the floor dropped out from under me. That night, she'd already been with someone else. She let me pay for that meal. Let me sit there while her sister humiliated me. And she laughed. I couldn't find words. None that made sense. None that mattered. She cried. She said she was sorry. She said she was confused. That she didn't know what she wanted anymore. But I did. I wanted my dignity back. Over the next 2 months, we split everything. Bank accounts, furniture, memories. She moved out first, into an apartment downtown. I stayed in the house alone until we sold it. I found a small condo in Round Rock. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, just enough space for quiet. I started seeing a therapist. Not because I couldn't handle it, but because I needed to understand why I'd tolerated it for so long. Why I'd laughed off the insults, paid for every meal, stayed silent while her family slowly chipped away at my worth. What I uncovered wasn't anger. It was sad. I loved her. Deeply. But I'd stopped loving myself somewhere along the way. And then, one day, out of nowhere Alana called me. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity got the better of me. Hey, she said. Her voice was hesitant. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For that night. For what I said. I didn't say anything. I didn't know Tanya was cheating on you, she added. Would it have mattered? I finally asked. She was quiet. She's not with him anymore, she said. He cheated on her. Karma. Or something like it. I just thought you should know. I hung up without another word. The call from Alana stuck in my mind longer than I wanted it to. I didn't care to know about Tanya's new relationship, or how fast it had already gone to hell. But that one detail he cheated on her kept echoing in my brain like a distant siren. I didn't feel smug. I didn't feel vindicated. Honestly, I felt tired. When someone breaks your heart, there's a part of you that wants to believe they'll get what's coming to them. But when it happens, it doesn't feel like justice. It just feels like more wreckage in a story you didn't ask to be part of. A week after that call, I deleted Tanya's number. I didn't block her. I just removed her. Like pulling a weed from a garden. Not violently, just carefully roots, and also nothing would grow back in that spot. Life after divorce isn't dramatic. It's not like the movies. There's no grand epiphany, no makeover montage, no spontaneous trip to Paris where you rediscover yourself on a cobblestone street. It's quiet. It's drinking your coffee alone in a silent kitchen that used to smell like burnt toast and perfume. It's learning how to cook for one. It's realizing you don't know how to fold fitted sheets or where the extra light bulbs are stored. It's waking up in the middle of the night and forgetting, for a moment, that the other side of the bed won't ever be warm again. I got used to it slowly. I started working out again not for revenge, not to show her what she lost, just because I needed something to feel like progress. I joined a gym near the condo, one of those no-frills, 24-hour places that always smells faintly of rubber and stale air. I went 3 times a week, sometimes more when sleep wouldn't come. I picked up an old hobby, woodworking. Used to be something my dad and I did in the garage when I was a kid. I bought a few tools, started watching videos online, and before long, I was building little tables and bookshelves. Nothing fancy, but it gave me something to do with my hands besides scroll through my phone or sit in silence. Work stayed the same. My job has always been consistent, if nothing else. Long hours, occasional frustrations, but it kept me grounded. My manager, Tessa, noticed the change in me. She didn't ask much, just started giving me a little more space when I needed it, which I appreciated more than I could say. One Sunday afternoon, I ran into Jasper, Tanya's cousin, at H-E-B. I was picking up groceries, a cart half full of frozen meals and produce I probably wouldn't finish before it spoiled. He looked surprised to see me. Ron? Man, hey. He looked thinner. More tired than I remembered. Hey, Jasper, I said, offering a nod. Didn't expect to see you here. Didn't expect to be here, I replied. Guess we're both doing things differently these days. He scratched the back of his neck, hesitating. I just want to say, I'm sorry too. For that night. Alana was out of line. We all were, probably. I didn't say anything at first. Just stared at the shelves of bread behind him. Then I said, you laughed. I know, he said quietly. We didn't know what was going on. Tanya didn't tell us. Doesn't matter, I said. He looked like he wanted to say more, but didn't. We exchanged an awkward goodbye and rolled our carts in opposite directions. I watched him disappear around the canned soup aisle. I stood there for a long moment, just breathing. In, out. I thought about how different it all looked from this side of things. Everyone laughed that night. Everyone thought it was funny. But now, on this side of the wreckage, the joke had become something else entirely, something none of them wanted to remember being a part of. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It wasn't even loneliness. It was the gaslighting, the slow erosion of self-worth. The way Tanya's family turned every interaction into something that made me question whether I was good enough. Whether I was even seen. Every jab from Alana. Every eye roll from Brielle. Every time Tanya brushed it off like I was being too sensitive. It all added up. 1,000 tiny cuts. When you're in it, you tell yourself it's not that bad. You rationalize. You excuse. You focus on the good days, the sweet moments, the inside jokes that used to mean something. But deep down, something in your gut knows. Knows when the love has stopped being real. Knows when you're no longer being held, but tolerated. One rainy Thursday evening, not unlike the one when it all began, I found myself sitting at a little diner off I-35. It wasn't a place I usually went, but I'd had a long day and didn't feel like eating alone in my kitchen again. The place smelled like bacon grease and coffee, the kind of scent that felt oddly comforting. I sat at the counter, ordered a patty melt and black coffee, and watched the waitress refill cups and make small talk with truckers and tired parents. At some point, an older couple sat a few stools down. Late 60s, maybe early 70s. They ordered the same meal, shared a plate of fries, and argued playfully over which songs were playing on the jukebox. I don't know why, but watching them hit me in the chest like a freight train. Not because I missed Tanya. Not exactly. But because I missed the idea of growing old with someone who still found you interesting enough to argue about music with. Who shared fries without keeping count. Who made the world feel less sharp around the edges. I finished my meal in silence, paid the bill, and stepped out into the night. The rain had stopped. The air smelled fresh. I stood there for a minute, letting it sink in. I was alone, but I was free. There was pain, sure, but there was also space. Room to rebuild. Room to rediscover who I was without Tanya. Without the version of me who'd learned to shrink to fit inside other people's comfort zones. Without the backup wallet label that had once felt like a punch and now felt more like a fading bruise. The next chapter wasn't written yet, but for the first time in a long time, I wanted to be the one holding the pen. After that night at the diner, something shifted in me. Not all at once, there was no big awakening, but little by little, the weight started to feel different. Less like a burden and more like a memory I was slowly learning to carry. I began doing more on weekends than just laundry and errands. I started driving. No destination. Just long drives across the Texas countryside. Past Wimberley, through Marble Falls, even took a detour all the way to Fredericksburg once, where I sat on a bench in the main square with a cheap cup of gas station coffee and just watched. People, sky, life. I wasn't chasing anything. I wasn't running either. I was just trying to remember what it felt like to exist without walking on eggshells. I'd been that man for too long. The one who smiled through subtle jabs, who reached for the check even when the laughter around him came at his expense. I'd been the quiet one, the stable one, the one who kept the car running and the lights on while everyone else played games in his shadow. But now, I was just Ron. No more titles. No more roles. Just a man with a second chance to breathe. One Saturday morning, around late March, I was out back behind my condo with a few planks of wood and my little makeshift sawhorse set. I'd picked up some reclaimed cedar from a guy in Bastrop. Rough stuff, a bit of work, but good bones. I was sanding the edge of a shelf I'd been building when I heard someone call out from behind the fence. "Hey, neighbor." It was a woman mid-40s maybe, tall, hair pulled into a low ponytail. She had a plastic tub under one arm and a leash in the other, a sleepy-eyed golden retriever trailing beside her. "I'm Dana," she said. "I live 2 doors down. Figured I'd introduce myself before I start dragging furniture out for the community garage sale next weekend." I smiled, brushed sawdust from my hands, and nodded. "Ron, nice to meet you." She pointed at the planks. "Are you building something? Or just out here pretending to be busy so people don't talk to you?" I laughed. "First real one in a while. Bit of both." Dana smirked, gave a friendly wave, and kept walking. I didn't think much of it then. Just a neighbor. A little moment. But it stuck with me. Maybe because I'd spent so much time avoiding people that simple human connection felt foreign. And maybe, just maybe, I was finally ready to stop hiding. Tanya reached out about 4 months after the divorce was final. It was a short email. Cold. Practiced. She said she needed to know if I still had the box with her old camera gear. She claimed she'd left it in the garage, and now that she was freelancing again, she could use it. I didn't reply right away. I read it, closed it, reopened it, sat with it for a few days. When I finally responded, it was direct. I told her I didn't have it, that anything left behind had gone to Goodwill when I moved. Which was true. I didn't ask how she was doing. I didn't offer to catch up. I didn't include a "hope you're well" or a "maybe someday we can talk." Because I didn't know her that anymore. She chose her path. She made her peace with disrespect. And whatever regret she carried, it was hers to bear now. The version of me who would have softened the blow, offered a kind reply, or made excuses for her behavior was gone. And honestly, I didn't miss him. Around mid-April, Dana showed up again, this time holding a small pot of basil and a bottle of wine. "I've got too many of these," she said, holding up the plant. "And I opened this last night, but didn't finish it. You want a glass?" I hesitated, then said, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" We sat on my small patio, 2 fold-out chairs and a cooler between us. Talked for an hour, maybe 2. About nothing and everything. Jobs, old movies, why people in Texas insist on wearing shorts when it's still 60 degrees. She didn't ask about my ex. I didn't ask about hers. We didn't need to. The silence between us wasn't heavy. It was natural. Easy. After she left, I stood in my doorway for a few minutes, just staring out into the night. It wasn't romantic, not in the way movies paint it. There was no magical moment, no sparks flying. But there was peace. And after everything I'd been through, Peace felt revolutionary. Sometimes, I still think about that night at the restaurant. Not with bitterness. Not anymore. I think about the way Tanya laughed. The way the table went quiet. The way I slid the bill to her without raising my voice. It was the first moment I chose myself in a long time. It wasn't just about the dinner. It was about everything that had led up to it. The years of feeling like I had to earn my place at the table, even in my own marriage. The weight of being the dependable one, while everyone else got to be loud, messy, celebrated. That one act passing her the bill wasn't about money. It was about drawing a line. Over the months that followed, Dana and I became friends. No rush, no expectations. Just quiet company on long evenings, occasional meals shared between two people who had both seen what disappointment looked like and still chose to keep going. She never asked for more than I could give. And that, more than anything, taught me what respect actually looked like. One warm June afternoon, I got an unexpected message from Jasper again. This time, he was hosting a backyard barbecue for his birthday and apparently wanted to bury some things and catch up. I didn't want to go, but something in me said I should. Not for him, for me. When I showed up, the backyard was full of kids running around with popsicles, folding chairs in crooked lines, music drifting from a Bluetooth speaker on a lawn table. Jasper greeted me with a hug, overly enthusiastic, like he was trying to erase years of silence with one gesture. "Glad you came, man," he said. "Really, everyone's here." I looked around, and there she was, Tanya, sitting on a bench under the pergola, drink in hand, sunglasses pushed up onto her head. Alone, no man beside her. Her hair was darker than I remembered, pulled into a neat braid. She looked like she'd aged not physically, but in the way life has of stretching people when they've lost their grip. She saw me, froze. I walked right past her, didn't nod, didn't smile, didn't give her anything to cling to. And that, right there, was the beginning of the end for her. Because the old me would have stopped, said hi, tried to make things less awkward, give her a soft place to land. But that man was gone. I talked with a few people, ate a burger, watched Jasper chase his dog around with a water balloon, laughed with one of his friends, a guy named Sean, who reminded me a little of myself, quiet, observant, always half smiling. At one point, I caught Tanya watching me. Her expression? It wasn't hate. It wasn't even guilt. It was confusing, like she couldn't understand how I'd survived, how I'd come out on the other side whole, how the man she'd once controlled was now walking tall, laughing, choosing not to even acknowledge her presence. Later, when I was about to leave, she approached me. Alone. No backup. "Ron," she said quietly. I looked at her. Calm. Grounded. She paused, scanning my face like she was looking for something: weakness, regret. Maybe even the version of me she once had easy power over. "You look good," she said. "I feel good," I replied. Another pause. "I heard about your woodworking stuff. That shelf you made for Dana's place? It's beautiful." I tilted my head slightly. "Dana's?" Her eyes flicked down, then back up. "Yeah, she's been talking about you." I smiled just slightly. "She's a good neighbor." Tanya nodded slowly. Then, just like that, she realized what was happening. That she no longer mattered. That I hadn't just moved on. I'd built a whole new life without her in it. One where she wasn't missed. One where she had no voice, no weight, no more power to wound. And that was the revenge. Not a cruel word. Not a dramatic scene. Just dignity. Quiet. Firm. Unshakable. I left that barbecue with nothing more than a wave to Jasper and a cold soda in my hand. Dana was waiting on her porch when I got home. She waved. "How'd it go?" I sat beside her, letting the sun fall across my shoulders. "Good," I said. And it was. I don't need Tanya to regret what she did. I don't need Alana to apologize again. I don't even care if anyone at that table ever thinks twice about what they laughed at. What I needed was to find the version of me that remembered his worth. To heal in silence. To rebuild in peace. Now, when I pick up a check at dinner, it's not out of habit. It's because I choose to. Now, when someone tries to talk over me, I let them, but I don't stay at the table. And now, when I hear someone joke about real men, I don't flinch. Because I know who I am. And I'm no one's backup wallet. I am Ron. I am free. And I am finally home.